Good morning. Happy Monday. Hope you're doing well. Hope your moms had a nice Mother's Day, and I know you did something nice for them, right? Of course you did. Okay, so we're going to continue in Wayside School, Beneath the Cloud of Doom. This one's called Chapter 2, A Million. It's a very interesting picture. What does a foot have to do with a million? By the time Terrence got to school, he had already kicked 99 different things. He does love to kick. It started the moment he woke up. He kicked his bed. He kicked Rocky, his favorite stuffed animal. When he left his bedroom, he kicked the door shut. He kicked the wall as he sat at the kitchen counter and ate cereal. He kicked a table. He kicked 3 chairs. He kicked the rocks on the way to school. He kicked the flagpole. Still, as much as Terrence liked to kick things, it would take him his whole life to kick a million things. "How much is a million?" Mrs. Jules asked her class. Ooh, I know. Mac stretched his arm high. Mrs. Jules called on Mac. "A million," said Mac proudly. "Well, yes, I suppose that's correct," said Mrs. Jules. "A million is a million. Anyone else? John?" John lowered his hand. 999,999, he paused, then added, +1. He smiled. "Oh, that's good, John," said Dana, very impressed. "John's really smart," Joe agreed. Terrence wasn't paying attention. His big toe was hurt from all the kicking. His toenail was too long. Sherry, who had been sleeping at her desk, suddenly awoke and said, 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. She rested her head on her blue and red overcoat and went back to sleep. "Is that right, Mrs. Jules?" asked Jason. Said Sherry, trying to multiply all of Sherry's tens. "Well, if Sherry said it, it must be right." "Arithmetic makes my brain numb," said Damien. "That's why they're called numbers," said DJ. Terrence's big toe throbbed in pain. He couldn't think about anything else. There's really only one way to understand how big a million is, said Mrs. Jules, and it's not by using arithmetic. We need to collect a million somethings. "Dollars!" exclaimed Joy. Everyone cheered. They liked that idea. "Then we'd have the biggest party ever," said Deanie. "We're not collecting $1 million," said Mrs. Jules. "Any other ideas?" "Pumpkins," suggested Dana. Everyone else cheered Dana's idea too, but not as loudly as Joy's. "I don't think 1 million pumpkins would fit in school," said Mrs. Jules. "We need something small and not expensive." Stephen suggested little pieces of paper. Nobody cheered. "Boring," sang Kathy. Stephen felt hurt, but deep down, he'd have to admit that collecting bits of paper wouldn't have been a whole lot of fun. Ron suggested mud, but that was rejected too. "It's a good idea, Ron," said Mrs. Jules. But you can't count mud." "Why not?" he asked. "There's no such thing as 1 mud, 2 mud," explained Mrs. Jules. "Why not?" Ron asked again. "I don't know," Mrs. Jules had to admit. Terrence couldn't take it any longer. He took off his shoe and then his sock. One desk over, Rondi stared at him, horrified. Terrence's toenail was bent out of shape and it had turned black and blue. He opened his desk and took out his pair of safety scissors. Then, crossing one leg over the other, he started snipping. "You can't cut your toenail in class," said Rondi. "It's against the rules." "Who says?" said Terrence. It was one tough toenail, and the scissors weren't all that sharp. "Mrs. Jules," Rondi called, "Terrence is cutting his toenail right in class." Some kids laughed. Some said, "Gross." Terrence pushed hard on the scissors. At last, a piece of his toenail fell free, and his toe instantly felt better. "Terrence, come up here now," demanded Mrs. Jules, "and bring that toenail with you." Terrence picked the clipping off the floor, one shoe off, one shoe on. He hobbled to the front of the room. "Give me that," demanded Mrs. Jules. Terrence dropped the nail clipping into Mrs. Jules' outstretched hand. "You're a genius, Terrence," said Mrs. Jules. She held his nail clipping high in the air. "That's one," she announced. 999,999 to go. So they're going to collect toenail clippings? Ew. I hope you're not about to eat breakfast or lunch. Ew. All right, ladies and gents. Thanks for checking out our new book. And, yeah, happy Monday.